Pizza delivery boys' nightmare encounters. At 17, I was working as a pizza delivery boy for a local pizzeria. By then, I had been at it for months, making countless deliveries in my old, reliable Toyota, perfect for zipping around town. One Friday or Saturday night, I was on the closing shift, which ended at midnight later on weekends. It was nearing the end of my shift, well past 11 p.m., when my boss, whom I'll call Mario, handed me the details for my next delivery. A single pizza to a woman named Karen. Ironically, this delivery was unusually far, about 15 minutes away, while most orders were within a 5-minute radius. I figured the longer drive might mean a better tip. I loaded the pizza into my car, cranked up my usual playlist, and headed out. When I arrived at the address, it was a modest house in what seemed like a lower-income neighborhood. The lights were on in one of the first-floor rooms. As I approached the door, a woman called out from the window of the house next door, saying, "Excuse me, that pizza is for us. We gave the wrong address." So, I walked over to the neighboring house and noticed the doorbell was broken. I knocked loudly on the main door, but there was no answer for about 30 seconds. I knocked again, and a woman's voice yelled, "1 second." But it still took forever for the door to open. Finally, a woman in her mid-40s answered the door. She immediately smiled at me and gave me a flirtatious once-over. In a loud voice, she called out, "Charles, come look how handsome the delivery boy is." Another woman, around the same age, joined her at the door and did the same. My cheeks flushed. I was shy around older women, especially in situations like this. The woman I assumed was Karen asked me what time I got off work. I nervously replied that this was probably my last delivery. Then, one of them asked if I wanted to come in for some wine. I knew my friends would never let me live it down if I passed up an opportunity like this, so I agreed. They asked how old I was, and I lied, saying I was 21. They laughed and said they didn't care if I was underage. They led me to the couch, sitting on either side of me. The whole situation felt surreal. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. The women were clearly drunk, flirting with me, complimenting my dimples and shyness. I sipped the wine, pretending it didn't taste awful. I wasn't a wine drinker at that age. Then, one of the women, Chelsea, suggested they show me something in the basement. I laughed and asked what it was, but they just said it was a secret. I walked over to the basement door and peered into the darkness below. When I glanced back at them, their smiles had faded, replaced by blank expressions, until they noticed me looking, and their laughter returned. I asked firmly, "What's down there?" They replied in unison, "It's a surprise." As I started to descend, one of them said, "Leave the lights off." I'm not entirely sure, but I thought I saw something move in the darkness, like a person's arm or hand. I turned around and saw the two women creeping toward the door. I quickly stepped out of the basement, shut the door, and nervously asked for payment for the pizza. As I moved toward the front door, I spotted a towering man standing in the doorway of what I assumed was the kitchen. His words have stayed with me ever since. "Let's just make this easy." I bolted for the door, yelling, "The pizza's free." I slammed the door behind me, but it opened seconds later. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and saw the man already at my passenger side window try to open the door. I hit the gas and sped off without looking back. When I got back to work, I told my boss what had happened. He and the others were in shock. I called the non-emergency police line to report the incident, just in case something worse happened at that address in the future. Whatever trap I had narrowly avoided, I was grateful I didn't find out what it was. A couple of years later, at 19, I was still delivering pizzas to help pay for food and gas. The job was usually uneventful, just taking orders, boxing up food, and driving to the given address. Tips were typically 3 to 5, though some customers were more generous. One night, I was delivering a chicken parm hero and a slice to a house on a dead-end street. The area felt more rural than the rest of the neighborhood, with an RV parked on the grass and overgrown shrubs next to an abandoned-looking house. When I arrived at the address, the house was dark and the front door was slightly ajar. I knocked and rang the doorbell, but it didn't work. Inside, I could hear a piano playing a simple, eerie tune that repeated over and over. I felt uneasy, but decided to walk around to the back door. The backyard was a mess, with broken furniture and a rusty chain-link fence lying in the grass. I knocked on the back door, but no one answered. I called the pizzeria to confirm the address, and they assured me it was correct. Reluctantly, I pushed the front door open and called out, "Pizza's here." The piano stopped, and a voice yelled, "Over here," before the music resumed. The house was dark and musty, and I felt increasingly uncomfortable. I yelled again, and the music stopped for good. A voice from another room said, "Sorry, I have trouble walking. Could you bring it in here?" I asked which room he was in, and he replied, "Just walk through the living room. I'm in the dining room." I hesitated, but decided to check. As I peeked into the dining room, I saw the piano, but no one sitting at it or anywhere else in the room. I quickly backed out, shut the front door, and drove back to the pizzeria. When I explained the situation to my boss, he understood, especially since the customer never called back. Later, I looked up the address and discovered the house had been foreclosed months ago and was vacant. Everyone at work was shocked. I had been moments away from walking into what could have been a robbery or something even worse. In my final week in an Italian restaurant that also served pizza, I had a delivery that left me scarred. It was a late-night order for 3 specialty pizzas, totaling around $70. The delivery was to a rough part of town, which was already a red flag. I drove my old Civic, hoping it wouldn't draw attention. When I arrived, a Latino man opened the door halfway, saw the pizzas, and then fully opened the door, revealing a gun in his hand. 2 more men appeared, grabbing me while the first held me at gunpoint. They yelled in Spanish, and the man with the gun demanded, "Give me all your stuff." I handed over my wallet, phone, and watch. One of them read my address for my ID and threatened to kill my family if I reported them. They shoved me out the door, and I landed on my hands and knees, bleeding. I didn't return to the pizzeria. I was too shaken. When I got home, my parents noticed my injuries and pressed me for answers. I told them everything, and my dad, who had police connections, immediately called for help. The police surrounded the house and arrested 2 of the 3 men. The ringleader, who had prior felony convictions, received a life sentence. The 3rd man was never found. To this day, I sometimes hear noises outside at night, footsteps, the gate swinging, and wonder if it's just my imagination or if that 3rd man is still out there. The experience has stayed with me, a constant reminder of how close I came to something far worse.